the question I've always wanted to know is why? Why is that the case? Like why? It's not that like, oh, support people are evil or tank people are dumb or DPS player have ego. It's like, okay, then why do we see this more often within the support community?
I think it's important to keep in mind the purpose of this discussion isn't really to lambast support players. I mean, I myself would consider myself a support player primarily in Overwatch, but more to raise a lot of important points about why sometimes we see trends with communities going back even to 2016 with Overwatch's release. And you can see it right now in the Marvel Rivals community. It's important for us not just to be aware of those things so that we can be aware of maybe our own biases when we do play support, but also to maybe raise some questions about things that we can be doing differently with whether it's our vernacular, our mindset, our feedback, or even the balance and development of the support role moving forward, or the strategist role. I think the name, even strategist, seems like an implication for Marvel Rivals that they're really trying to move away from that healer mindset. Maybe it's just legally different from support. I don't really know. But ultimately, I think this video should be used more as to raise a lot of questions. Obviously, I do have a lot of experience not only playing support myself, but more importantly, working with thousands of support players in the last 6 or 7 years. And I put a lot of thought into this, but this isn't an official scientific study. So maybe there's some of my own biases that are going to this as well. Within my own limited experience. So anyway, I think it's food for thought. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and enjoy the video.
So, I don't know, actually, you know what, let me pull up the video. Do you guys remember, I did a video with this in Overwatch, and I did a video back in Overwatch going, our support's boosted, a breakdown of like basically how mathematically it doesn't make sense to say that support mains are boosted within their role, because you can't have people that are boosted within a role, because a role is a breakdown, a curve of who's good and who's bad within that role. But the important differentiation is that our support mains boosted compared to other players in the game. In other words, if I were to put a tank player, a tank main, or a DPS or Vanguard or a duelist main on support, would it be easier for those players to pick up support? And in Overwatch, the answer is more often than not, yes. It depends on the support and it depends on the situation, but more often than not, yes. A lot of proactivity is demanded from support in Overwatch 2. A lot of mechanics are really demanded from Overwatch 2. And unless you're trying to learn like something like a Lucio or a Mercy, and even with a Lucio, there's things that you could pick up. The answer is that DPS players, because they're more mechanically demanded, they generally do very well. Now, it depends on the character. I know I've coached a lot of Honest and Yada mains. They do very well when going to DPS and so on. And it depends on the tank too, right? So, but the general rule is that no support mains aren't boosted, but more often than not, people don't want to play support. So if you do come in with mechanics in the support role, it's generally better than the support role going to any other role. So the answer is that support mains and Overwatch are boosted gamers, but they're not boosted within the role, if that makes a little sense. And it's the same thing with Marvel Rivals, because yes, Marvel Rivals does have some mechanical expression within the role, but it's the same exact thing. So Marvel Rivals is building an entitled and bitter support community, and there's a few reasons why this is happening. Every role in hero shooters has their cardinal sin, DPS equals eagle, tanks oblivious, so what's happening with strategist? And basically, as somebody that's coached thousands and thousands and thousands, about 10,000 of more than 10,000 people over the last 6 years, basically you start to see a common theme that DPS have this ego situation, tanks are oblivious. And the question I've always wanted to know is why? Why? Like, why is that the case? Like, why? It's not that like, oh, support people are evil or tank people are dumb or DPS player have ego. It's like, okay, then why do we see this more often within the support community? Number one, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So role queue. So basically my thought is this, is that with role queue, whether you stance on whether Marvel Rivals needs or doesn't need role queue or role lock or whatever else, I'm not really going to get into that today. But what is objectively true is that when you don't have role queue, you get all the benefits of not having role queue. But one of the downsides is that you have people that have to fill more often to the team's needs. This doesn't happen as much in role lock or role queue, which is one of the few upsides to that, is that people can play what they want to play. With role queue, you have people that have to fill other people's needs. So you have people that are more likely to fill that. So here's the rule, is when you do a favor for somebody else, there's an automatic feeling of like, oh, well, I deserve to be returned. I deserve to be recompensed or compensated for me filling our team's need or this person's needs, right? And so what happens is when you are a person that is more likely to fill to the team's need, because duelist is the more popular role, you're more likely to fill the need of the team not playing duelist. and probably more often than not playing what you want. This doesn't speak for every support player. In fact, this doesn't even speak for the majority of support players, I'd bet. But I'd say a certain large percent of support players, 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever percent, are often would like to play something else, but are unable to. This goes for Vanguard as well, because they have to fill a need. So that gives you a sense of expectation of I deserve this, I deserve it, and I never get it, which really puts you in a situation where it's like you have, and you see this on the subreddit all the time. Like even if the subreddit isn't representative of the community as a whole, it is representative of the support community on that subreddit. And if you guys have paid attention to that subreddit for the last month, there is okay, well, I filled support on for you. I filled strategist for you. You better do your job because I bent over backward to help you and filled the role that you didn't want to play. So you better freaking perform. And that's just a completely unrealistic expectation, right? That's a completely unrealistic expectation. So I'm entitled to seeing you perform because I'm serving you. I'm going out of my way to do what you don't want to do, and you're not performing. Are you kidding me? And that builds bitterness. That builds resentment. And it's not that support players are mean and nasty and dirty. It's that there's an expectation of performance. Like I'm doing what you don't want to do. Come on, perform. And I don't know if there's a solution. I talk about this, some implementation of some form of role queue, if not role lock. The other one is that really the pipe dream. I don't think this is ever going to happen of like, oh, in theory, if you made the support role or heroes within the strategist role more desirable, then they would be the ones that people would want to play. And going duelist would be more of the necessity. And I have to do this. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Maybe it could happen little bit by little bit. If you make things like, for example, I like playing Zenyatta and Ana. I want to play Zenyatta and Ana in Overwatch. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that like certain Vanguards and strategists. I think that could be improved better with more quantity and quality within that role. But, I don't think that it will ever fully deal with that problem, to be honest with you. So we'll keep going here, though. It's because that's not all. Support, not a healer mindset. So basically, the other thing as well is, elaborating off my previous reply, this one's a hard one to break, is there are certain expectations where going a support role in a shooter. So basically, you kind of have to do, they're expecting you, let me clarify. You don't have to do, for you to do the more interesting things with strategist, more often than not is going to put you in a position where people are going to flame you, okay? So I know I complained earlier that I still think Marvel Rivals is too heal body. That is true. But there are windows, situations, and strategies, whether it's a Mantis or a flanking Jaff or Loki finding opportunity to poke frontline, where you're going to do damage and you need to do damage and you need to use your offensive utility. So you get to actually be a little bit of the main character. You get to kind of do what you want. The problem is that our understanding of support and duelist within shooters and team games is such that your entire job is to serve me and do what I need you to do. And so you have these strategists that are already maybe filling a role that they don't necessarily want to play all the time, but then they also get flamed for doing anything selfishly or any sort of personal individual value, even if that's the correct play. There is this mindset of what a strategist should do. This affects Vanguard and Duelist to an extent, but often strategists about what they should do, and it's service. It's nothing but service, even if that's not necessarily in the interest of them winning the game. You get what I'm saying? Right. As soon as a teammate dies, they'll be blaming the flanking support when they have the attention of two people, or even how dare you try to finish off that 1 HP target when I was standing in the open at half HP. And so that makes people upset. That makes people angry. I think that I see that more flamed. I saw that flamed a lot in my climb. I see that all the time. I see that all the time in Overwatch. If you spent a nanosecond not healing me, you're the problem. First thing I always see, whenever people flame the strategist, how many heals do you have? Like, as if that tells you anything, right? Like, as if that tells you anything about the quality of that support player. And yet that's the first thing that we go to. So it's actually not just the game itself that's making support players a little bit bitter and entitled. It's also the understanding of the larger community as a whole that has certain expectations on the role that makes it feel a little bit more bitter and a little bit more frustrated, right? Strategist, right. So we keep going. You're playing the easier heroes, and this is the sad news. And this is another thing as well. So let me give you guys an example. Spider-Man goes for some freaking crazy rollout. Woo! Does a super crazy combo. Nope. Luna Snow healed the target. It's literally never gonna die. It's literally never gonna die. All right. Fill in the blank with whatever that you want to. Right. Tank, Captain America's on the back line. Doesn't matter how good you are with cooldown management. It's never gonna die. They press Q or they use sustain, whatever. So what this means is that there's a certain level of expectation of like, I don't have to put as much effort into dealing with your threat. So therefore, maybe I'm just the superior player. Maybe I just am better. So think about it this way. When a Spider-Man kills me or Black Panther kills me as a support, it's a duelist. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm totally incapable of defending myself. Oh, I did defend myself. I'm better than you. So it's like, it's either the game has created a situation which I can't possibly win, or I'm just better than you. That's like, you either don't compete or you win. There's no downside. So you get the superiority complex of like, my team should have healed for me. My DPS should have been helping me, or my team should be protecting me, or you just suck, right? There's never maybe I am equipped to be able to deal with this kind of a situation, or maybe my team can't help me right now. So that, again, there's a sense of entitlement that whatever I'm doing, either I'm incapable because duelists should win every 1v1, which is obviously false, or my team should have done more to help me. And the example I bring up in this post is an Overwatch one where a lot of Brig nerfs and Bat nerfs and Warrior nerfs, back when those supports were unbelievably overtuned and brain dead easy to play, a lot of people in the forums and Reddit and even Game were like, these characters aren't overtuned, you just need to know how to aim, as they play the character that doesn't need how to aim. And it requires no game sense, right? So I'm speaking kind of facetiously, but you get what I'm saying. So there's a sense of like, Moira got nerfed because of the Genji mains couldn't aim. Well, if everybody's having the same problem, maybe the problem's you. You get what I'm saying? Now, I'm kind of speaking facetiously here. I'm not, obviously, we're painting with a broad brush here. There are a lot of challenging supports. There are a lot of supports that have a lot of skill output, but that's just a general guideline that doesn't help the support community, where the support community in every game always feels victimized. They're always, I am incapable of defending myself, and low to mid tiers. That obviously changes in higher tiers as people start to understand what their character is capable of. But low to mid tiers, this is mindset of I serve everybody else and I'm completely at the whims of my team. And if there's anything that comes after me, I'm incapable. And if I do beat you, it's because I'm the greatest of all time. In reality, you're just playing an easier character and you're never actually using the kit that you have. And this kind of ties into like the impression of what a support really is, or a strategist really is. It's easy to put blame on an entire role for being egotistical or dumb or entitled. I find it much more interesting is to find out what about the environment in the game creates these subcultures, because I've coached hero shooters for 7 years. I get to see the trends form and change over time, and so on. Now, there's one other thing that I forgot to put in this tweet, and I was really kicking myself because the irony behind me forgetting to put this in the tweet was because this was the actual number one reason of why support mains are bitter and entitled. You guys want to understand what the number one reason why the support communities are generally the more entitled and bitter community? Do you guys want to know why? And again, I'm only speaking in broad terms because I have been coaching the game from all perspectives for as long as I have. Why is that? Who can tell me? Why are support players generally have a superiority complex in that regard? They don't want to play support. We already talked about that one. There's one even more important than that. There's a reason that's even more important than that. Zero recognition, that's not necessarily true. That's partly true. That's a good point. They think they're selfless. Duck's got it. Duck has it. And this is the one I don't see talked about enough. This is something I brought up, I want to say almost a year ago. It's because the way that support players are often positioned is with a full vision of the battlefield. The way that support players are positioned is with a full vision of the battlefield. They see enemy tanks, DPS. They see people going off in flank and feeding and dying, or people staggering, or I was healing you, but you just went in, and so basically what they do is they have a physical position on the battlefield where they can see every single stupid thing. And because tank players and DPS players don't have that position, they don't have that perspective. And it's also a lot easier to criticize people for doing things than it is for criticize people for not doing things. You shouldn't have fed. You shouldn't have flanked. You shouldn't have lost that duel, right? And so I can see all of the things that they're doing and failing to do and go, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck. You're basically a spectator. It's the literal backseat gaming is what you're doing. Literal backseat gaming. Armchair quarterbacking for you NFL fans out there, right? That's literally what you're doing. And now you may be asked, actually, strategists at a high level, you're like taking angles and being aggressive and you're doing, but that's high level. Most players don't do that. They just turn the brain off and just kind of shoot or heal what's in front of them. And so, of course, they've got brain space to open up and see everybody doing all the things that they shouldn't be doing, according to them. Half the time they're wrong, right? And so you feel the sense of like, man, every single game, my tank makes a stupid mistake. Every single game, my duelist goes off in the flank and dies. Every single game, these tanks don't turn around and help me. Because you're right, they don't. But they're not supposed to. Tanks are you're gonna see, if you see every mistake, Every single game at every single level, a tank makes a crucial mistake. It's unavoidable. We're humans. Every single time your DPS takes an angle, one of those times it's not going to work. At least, even in a game that you're winning, they're going to make a mistake. They're going to flank. They're going to goof up. They're going to miss an ultimate. Man, if I know my support players are watching me play Winter Soldier and hit my head in the stupid ceiling, popping my ult. Happens all the time, right? So they see all the mistakes, and because of there's no sort of inflection, not inflection. Is it the word I'm looking for? Where you're just there's no sort of self-awareness about like what am I not doing, right? What up coolness am I missing? You know what I'm saying? And it well, reflection kind of. You get what I'm saying. I don't know that I wanted to. I don't think reflection was exactly what I was looking for. Maybe reflection, introspection. Yes. So the idea is that like there's this your literal perspective is trained from seeing the worst of your team. And because your role encourages you, or not encourages you, but there's like this culture around the role that you shouldn't be proactive, you shouldn't do anything, you should just sit back and heal. You're also less likely to make less obvious mistakes. Like whenever, you guys have seen me coach support, right? How many of you guys have seen some of my support coaching VODs in Overwatch? Different game, but similar principle. 90% of my support VODs, literally 95% of them are more of what you're not doing and not what you're doing and doing wrong. 95% is all about you are not doing enough. You're playing too much for your life. You're not getting a reward for the risk. You're taking unnecessary risk, unnecessary. But I almost never get a support who's trying to being too proactive. Almost never happens. It almost never happens. It's all about opportunity costs. Like you're existing, but you're not providing anything out of your existence. So there was a time where supports got flamed the vast majority of games. What changed? I think 5v5 changed. Frankly, I think there's one fewer tank that demands healing at all times. So now you have one tank, 2 DPS, two supports. I mean, literally, that's probably the answer. So, yeah, I mean, can I give you an example? I mean, there's a million examples. Literally a million. I coached support today. Guy was not prioritizing anti-nade enough and wasn't prioritizing good angles. Brigitte sitting in the backline. Lucio not taking proactive angles. Kiriko sitting inside of her backline. Lifeweaver not looking for safe damage angles in between healing. I mean, there's just literally, it's constant. Support main is always opportunity costs. Now, again, we talked about this with Rivals where it's not, there is more healing involved, but there still has to be proactivity with setting up where do I need to be, who do I need to be healing, who do I need to be supporting, who's going in aggressive, and then also understanding that people are going to make mistakes, but you need them to make mistakes to win the game. It's easy to be highly ineffective, exactly. So the problem here is not that support players attract necessarily toxic people. That's not the case. They're trained to be toxic with both the culture and with the way that the game goes in. So you have to kind of go in with this mindset of like, I know I'm going to see my teammates' mistakes, but I got to be self-reflective, right? So I'm kind of doing this not just to kind of flame support players. I think if anything, it's the opposite. It's to show that like this is why they are the way that they are, right? This is why they are the way they are. And I encourage you guys to, when you are playing support and get this game, to be more proactive, to be more thoughtful, to be less hard on your tanks and DPS players. And frankly, like without the role queue, if you don't want to play support, don't play support. Don't play strategist. So. Because if you only fill, you're going to have a sense of earned entitlement, and you might really destroy your love of the game. I think it's good to fill if you want to. I think it's going to be your chance to enjoy the game, but yeah, there really isn't exactly an easy answer with the role queue. You got to deal with the sins of role queue while you benefit from the upsides of it too. So, well, not doing enough as a tank or DPS is less baked into the identity of what the kit, or the cultural identity of the kit. If you do nothing as tank, nothing will happen. Strategist, whatever. Like with DPS and tank, there's a closer identity of what I'm supposed to do, with a few exceptions. You know, like you have to do something as tank, you know? You are supposed to get picks as a duelist, even though that's like a really, really boiled down, simplified version. It's kind of like there's going to be some sort of action taken, usually. So, you know, it doesn't mean that you're always doing the right thing, but you're gonna do something. Now, my point being is that, you know, there's sins of tanks and supports. My point here is not why support players are bad and evil and the worst players ever. My point is, why are support players more entitled and bitter? We could have just as long of a discussion about why DPS players are egotistical, you know what I'm saying, and racist. But you know, that's a different topic, so. Caregiver burden? I mean, it makes sense, right? Yeah. I would be very interested to hear more about that. It's a, you know, you get the responsibility of doing something. There's a certain level of expectation of like, man, when will I get to do what I want to do? You know, so yeah. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this. Maybe you disagree or contrast. It's just my experience with things and thinking things through, but maybe you guys have a different perspective. I know it's especially a sensitive one for me. Everyone who's been around with me for a while knows that like it's definitely one of my pet peeves is passive support players that never do anything. As a tanker DPS, whenever I play tanker DPS in any game, it really drives me nuts. My other pet peeve is people that don't press Q. I freaking hate that more than anything. So it's definitely more sensitive for me. Nothing you said is wrong, but also they're just evil, sinful people. That's right, Sarah Lee. That's right. DPS play uses their entire arsenal of weapons, including the psychological ones. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can. The thing is just like, not that I'm 100% right here, but you could even see it in the community, right? If you pay attention to Twitter, you pay attention to Reddit, you pay attention even within your match chat and voice. There's a lot of like expectation about what a support is and what a support isn't, and you'll see it. You'll see it. You don't even need to take my word for it. If you haven't seen it already, you will. Yeah, exactly, Endar. Exactly. The reason why it's my pet peeve is because they're playing the role so incorrect that it's very difficult for me to be like, your entire existence is wrong. Let me put it this way. Everything that you have done today in this game has been so incredibly wrong. It's better that you have done nothing. Your existence is it's not even a waste. It's just so forgettable that it might as well not even existed. Like, you contribute nothing. You do nothing. You don't say anything that is worth anything to anybody at any point in time. You might as well not even exist. And I'm not even saying this to be rude. You're just pointless. There is no meaning to anything that you have ever done. And that honestly feels like what it is to play with a support player sometimes. But I found rivals to be 10 times more toxic. Maybe, yeah. I think it's just more the casual side of things, and also the lack of role queue. But I'm not really sure. Knowing that the support is just spamming you to an extent, Clad Chest, to an extent, yeah. But it depends on the support utility. Like anti-nade from Ana. As a tank, I'm allowed to take space more aggressively when my Ana hits an aggressive anti-nade. Whereas a healing-focused anti-nade is not going to be enough to keep me up. A lot of at least with Overwatch, most of the utility is better used offensively. Not most, but a lot of utility is better used offensively to enable aggression. Like an amp heal versus an amp speed, which one's going to deny more damage? It's usually the amp speed for most people. The ability to quickly close the gap, whereas amp heal is it's just not enough. Yeah.